Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Panel After Dark podcast. I'm your host, Kelly P., and this is your space for real talk about all things sobriety related. We keep it sober, keep it spicy, free of booze, and full of life. And we've got a great show for you tonight, so we're going to jump right in. You guys want to go ahead and give just a brief introduction about yourself and plug any socials or anything else you got going on?
What up? My name's Luke. You can call me Hack, H-A-C-K. You can find me on YouTube, Hackus Prime. On Facebook, it's Lucas Davila. You can also find Hackus Prime on Facebook. I started doing social media to share my journey. It kind of integrates with the whole sobriety thing. I call it the journey of broken to broken. I was broken mentally, then I was broken physically from an accident. And it was all due to being mentally unstable and in 3 sheets in the wind. So, they say you're gonna find yourself in institutions, hospitals, or death, and I found myself, in all 3 of those. So not only do I share a little bit of my thoughts and things that I went through, I've shared some of the surgeries that I've had endured afterwards, and then I also share my exercising regularly. Just I broke 26 broken bones, multiple organ failures, had a month in a coma. It was a huge process learning how to move and just talk and walk
Life again.
Yeah. I woke up completely quadriplegic with a tube in my throat, so I couldn't speak for a couple days or communicate. So just where I am now, being able to get up and move around,
you're a miracle.
Learning how to use a wheelchair and a slide board and learning how to go through everything all over again. And that's kind of the significance, I guess. From first glance, you're just like, oh, this dude's just working out, so whatever. But then if you read the story in the description, you'll see it's a little bit more to it, more than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
So,
wow, that's incredible.
That's what I got going on. But you'll hear more about it, I'm sure, as we go along. But yeah, Hack.
Thanks, everyone. My name's Alex. I've been 9 years ago. I had a spiritual awakening and changed my life after a long bout of drug and alcohol addiction and violence and drug dealing and just a lot of trouble like that. Mm-hmm. And over this past 9 years, I've transformed my life completely through practicing spiritual principles. And I also have a podcast called Becoming Nobody with Alex. And I teach yoga and lead retreats in India and other places around the world. And I've had a lot of experience working with others, and I work in addiction recovery and have for the past 5 or 6 years. So happy to be on here.
What platform can we find your other podcasts?
I am on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Awesome.
Becoming Nobody with Alex.
Very cool. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you both for sharing. We're going to kind of jump into tonight's topic. We're talking about sobriety during the summer months, just recognizing that along with summertime comes some unique challenges, but also opportunities for those of us that choose sobriety. So we're going to go ahead and jump in with that. What are some common triggers during the summer that come up for you, and how do you navigate those things?
Triggers were a thing prior to my accident. My accident was 4 years ago, and that was my spiritual awakening. That's when I went through the coma, and when I came out, that was one of the first things I had recognized after I figured out I was the only person in the accident. Then I felt that burden of alcoholism almost lifted off my shoulders. So triggers now are different than they were prior, because I was fighting to get sober towards the end. I was in alcoholism for a good, almost 20 years, from teenage years all the way through. And the last 5 years, I was really trying. I was on Vivitrol. I tried the shot, and then I stopped taking the shot, started trying the pill, and then I started hiding the pills, and then I was just getting drunk again. And, it was a whole thing. Triggers were totally different prior to that, because everything was a trigger, because I had reserves in my head.
Right.
Whatever was going to be my excuse was going to be my excuse. But now triggers that, what I guess would have been triggers, they just kind of roll right off me like I got Rain-X all over me, and it just, every time I see something come that way, it's just right off me.
It is wild when you have an awakening. You have that spiritual awakening,
it's something that
transforms.
I needed. Yeah, it transformed the mentality. Yes. But I also do know that the triggers were there, but I wasn't I was able to fix them this time. You know, being on this side of the fence, I'm able to fix those triggers. So 4 years in, those triggers that I had before, I don't have the same reaction to, because it used to put me in a spot where I, you know, be mentally upset, and then I'd be distraught, and then I'm just all types of angry or pissed off or sad or whatever it was, because I didn't know how to navigate through my own emotions.
Absolutely.
So now that I have a lot more self-awareness, I'm able to navigate through those emotions. And a lot of times I don't have triggers like that, like specific things that trigger me anymore. You know, it's more or less like it's an action, you know, something that's out of my control. And then I have to, you know, say my little serenity prayer and remember what is out of my control. I cannot, you know, the courage to change what I can, wisdom to know the difference.
Right.
And like, I think the triggers, I think another thing with triggers now on this side of the fence, I look at them as character building opportunities. I don't have any more bad days. I don't look at bad days every time I'm like, this is a fucking shitty day. No, it's a character building day.
It's a great perspective.
It's a character building opportunity. And I always try to tell myself, like, I want more self-discipline. Okay, so then how do I start working on that? You got to have more self-awareness. And what's the best time to have self-awareness is those bad days where you're used to just being a little emotional, distraught, or just do whatever the hell you want to do and act however you want to act. No. You start taking those moments of realization, little by little, little victories. Shout out to my dude Slim, little victories, and you get those under your belt. And once you realize, like, oh man, I controlled that situation way better the other day than I did prior.
Absolutely.
And then you're gonna find yourself in a situation similar to that in the future again. So are you gonna keep handling it the same way, or are you gonna figure out how to navigate through your own self? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to be the master of my own self, and it's been a hard journey. Because I didn't know what I was doing for so long. You know, I was under the 3 sheets in the wind, like I said before, always at the bottom of a bottle. So, I mean, now, like I said, triggers are a character building opportunity if they come about.
That's a great perspective.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Well, first I wanted to say you're a miracle. So just a beautiful soul, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
And yeah, a lot of what Lucas said is, I mean, it's all spot on. But yeah, when I was in when I was in active drug and alcohol addiction, it was just, I was high all the time, 24/7, like 5 to 10 different drugs at a time. And the trigger wasn't even a concept to me because I just used no matter what.
Right.
Even if I was happy, sad, indifferent, it wasn't like I felt like I had to escape something. I was just always high. And if there was a brief amount of time I was trying to get there again as soon as I could. And then after having had that spontaneous spiritual awakening, which I didn't do anything to earn, it just sort of happened. Like the second day I was in rehab maybe, and I woke up back in 2016 in Chicago and just, I didn't care about the drug dealing anymore or all the people I wanted to get back or the money I was owed or any of it. It was like totally different. But then I followed it up with doing a ton of inner work on myself. But I was blessed that it all clicked for me right away. In the sense of clicked, I say in the sense of I wasn't thinking to myself, I have to do this. In the sense of I don't want to, but I got to do this. It sucks. It's the only way. It was more, I felt really inspired where I was like, when I started going to 12-step meetings and reading spiritual books and these things right away, I was like, I want more of this. And I started just clicking like everyone I was hearing. And that's not everyone's story. I know like people come in sometimes with 12-step meetings and stuff and it's hard. And they're like, I didn't want to be here at all. But I knew I had to. Mine was kind of like, I was really enjoying it. Like I was like, I want to get involved. Cool. Yeah. And it was a total shift because right before that, I was just very, very violent, very angry, like very aggressive and dominated with fear and anxiety and all these things. So it was a big change. Now I would say similar to Lucas, and I don't want to downplay the word of trigger because it can definitely happen with people, but I guess I would think the primary trigger for anyone and everyone would be thoughts, feelings, and emotions, like you were saying. And now I'm kind of similar to what Lucas was saying. I don't think of it in that term. So now when I feel thoughts and feelings and emotions that might be painful or unpleasant or challenging, my mind doesn't go to the alcohol or the drug anymore. Right. But I guess when somebody does, that is what the challenge is realizing. I mean, that's a big one, is realizing when you have thoughts and feelings and things that are hard, realizing that you can, like as Lucas said, learn from them, face them, go through them, breathe through them.
Right.
And what helped me a lot is through books like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle and Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Wayne Dyer. Some of these books started getting me to realize that I was more than my thinking mind, and that these thoughts are passing through my mind, but they're not who and what I am. Because before, I didn't know that at all. So anything that came in this mind, I was just like impulsively I would do it, and I had no emotional intelligence or awareness. And yoga and meditation help with that, and sharing openly with others. I think that's a big one too for triggers.
It sure is.
Talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we're only as sick as our secrets. I think that's a pretty common thing that we learn in recovery, or I learned early on, and that's been very true for me as well. But I would like to echo what you said to Luke, just that you're also a miracle, and I think that's the beautiful part of sobriety. I think that so many people miss out on when they quit too early on, when it is hard and you're still stuck in that thinking mind, is that it's that spiritual awakening that the big book talks about. And it is that transformation of thinking it's not, oh, I have to do this, or I'm stuck with this situation. It's getting to that point of looking at it as an opportunity for growth and self-awareness and radical acceptance of, okay, this is the situation, and taking it as it comes and accepting those things that we can't change and working to change the things that we can. And those are all great ways to handle situations that maybe before would have driven us to drink or to drug. Working through those things, the underlying things, or the root problems, or the traumas, or whatever the circumstances were that caused us to turn to drugs and alcohol in the first place. I think those are great insights, you guys, and I appreciate that.
And something I did want to touch on, with the whole spiritual awakening situation, it wasn't like, just so everybody knows, it didn't, when it happened, everything didn't just all of a sudden change like automatically.
No.
There was a lot of groundwork that had to be done. There was a lot of footwork that had to be done, it was like, yeah, I had that feeling, that overwhelming feeling, but then I had to take it and I had to run with it and I had to pursue it and I had to continue moving with it. It wasn't something that just was there and stayed. It was that moment, and I was able to catch that moment and run with that moment. And that's what ultimately helped me, keep it going, keep moving forward, was doing the work, Yeah, okay, I got this moment, but what am I going to do now? Looking into the future, that's when I started reaching out to like AA and things like therapy, because like I had to start figuring out how to reformat the way that I'd process. So
for sure, it's changing those people, places, and things, right?
So, but I'm just saying it because I know a lot of people. I've seen it in AA before, where people are like, I don't got a spiritual awakening. I'm just fucking here and I'm just fucking trying. And I'm just, and they get frustrated. But it's like, even when you get that spiritual awakening, you still have to do the groundwork. And sometimes I don't think people realize when they are going through their spiritual awakening, because some people isn't just like that.
No, right.
Some people, it does take them months, and then they finally turn around and they're like, oh, I do have this under my belt. Oh, I do have self-discipline.
Yes.
And their spiritual awakening comes from the groundwork. So, just want to put that out there before there's any misconception that, you just wake up one day and it's all good in the hood.
Sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. There's still a lot of work to be done.
There is. And I think that's true even in, I think it's true early on in sobriety, but it's true even with long-term sobriety, that you don't want to get sloppy in those habits, and you have to continue to focus on those things. And that's kind of a good lead into another question that we can talk about is, what advice would you give someone experiencing their first sober summer? And I think talking about, doing the work and focusing on some of those things is a good lead into that.
Well, if you're experiencing your first sober summer, my recommendations would be, you better have some hobbies and habits under your belt.
Yes.
You better find some interests. You better find some things you like to do. If you don't, you better start coloring a picture and figuring it out, because that's something that's definitely helped keep you got to occupy your mind. Something with me, I always had a bottle on me. So I got used to always having a bottle on me, like even if I was at the party, I still had the bottle in the car. I had the sleeve of shooters. Like I was ready. There was never a time I was going to be without. So like going into summers, it's different because I needed something tangible. And that's where these all come into play. Like these are all my little figures that I got hanging out, my little Transformers. Like I have those as fidgets. I play with them. They're tangibles. Like, you know, I'll even accessorize. Like, all right, I got a blue shirt on today. Blue boy's coming with me. Like, I had to look for other things in my day, you know, whether you want to go, you know, ride horses or be at the range, or, you know, I mean, I do the gym too.
Sure.
But I had to start filling in a lot of those time slots of, you know, how much of my time a day was occupied by my addiction. All fucking day.
All of it.
All day. I woke up. By the time I got in the car, I was, you know, the way that I went to bed and everything in between. You know, I knew how much it was to drink during the day. I knew how much it cost, how many ounces I needed, how much Coca-Cola I needed to go with it. Like, it was down to a science.
Yes.
So I had to really figure out, how am I going to fill in my days? Now I like to go to the gym in the mornings, you know. I like to take my little moments, like when I have little victories in my day, I call them my little victories of my days, you know, whether it's little routines or I'm meal prepping or whatever it be. You know, I reward myself, like, I'm going to get to play with my new guy for a second here. I'm going to put him in a new pose. Bam, he's on the shelf, right? Or, you know, I get to go watch my little 20-minute YouTube video that because I've been trying not to get into the doom scrolling so much. You know,
Amen.
Your addictions will wander
It's
if you
another
let them
form
wander.
of, yes.
Your addictions will wander if you let them wander. So don't get bad habits. But yeah, you definitely have to start figuring out something, have something in place, something to look forward to, whether you're building a routine or you're like, okay, I'm going to go try new things, or, you know, you really got to relearn yourself and reinvent yourself so that when you're going out there this summer, use that day. The light is going to be out from 4:45 in the morning till about 9 o'clock at night. And I'm going to see the sunrise. I'm going to see the sunset almost every single day because I have my days planned out like that. I go to the gym in the morning. I spend the rest of my day with, you know, working or with the kids. You know, like we go to the park, we go to the YMCA, we do things now. I'm occupying myself, occupying my days. So that's something that's important, is you have to occupy your days to occupy your mind. You know,
Absolutely.
I don't mind is the devil's play shop. So that's kind of like my tidbit. Make sure you get up, get out, go do something positive for yourself, plan something positive for yourself. You know, hobbies,
sure.
habits.
Solid
Go
advice.
to an AA meeting if you have to.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, first, definitely spiritual awakening many people can have, and then you can find yourself shortly back in the same situation. So for sure, it has to be sustained forever, you know, and every day we have to be doing the work. And really, it just depends how deep you want to take that, you know, how deep we want to take that, because you can do enough to get clean and sober, which is a great thing to do too. Or you can even go deeper and deeper and keep transforming your life. In a really beautiful way. And so, yeah, I mean, you have to find things that are fulfilling and things that follow your love and your light and your passion, and just shifting that mindset, I guess, from the quick thrill of a drink or a drug, and switching. I mean, there's a sad part of, you know, there's people I know that I was close friends with that stay in addiction because they were afraid to give up like some of the friends we had.
Yes.
And afraid to switch their dynamic, where I had to change that completely because it was just a natural change. Yeah, because your energies are at different levels now. You're at different places. You're not. But if you do stay in that, it's hard, because if you want to like remain part of that being cool or part of that style or part of that group, then and go to the same things in that way, then it's pretty difficult. But for me, I've found a lot of joy. I spend a lot of time in nature, a lot of time outside. I do like to travel a lot. What I do is spiritual-based pilgrimages to different holy sites and places like that. And I get a lot of my joy out of my inner work. So I spend a lot of time reading or meditating or these type of things. And also just having fun in each moment too, like not taking myself so seriously, not taking life and the world so seriously, knowing the seriousness on one level, but the playfulness on another level.
Absolutely.
I think is important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, again, we have to change those people, places, and things that kept us in our addiction or that kept us sick, that allowed us to continue to operate at that level. And so those are great insights as well. Just making sure that you come up with some other things to fill your time. That's so important. And then finding joy in the little things. Those are awesome awesome.
Yeah. And like Lucas mentioned, the toys, I also, like this rosary I have, I do a mantra all the time. So I'm always doing this inside myself, and it's like a little prayer. And then it's always reminding me about a deeper part of myself and a deeper part of the world and everyone else. And it reminds me also of the lightness of life, and all that is just something that keeps bringing me back. So I might get lost in thinking about something or worrying about something, or I have this coming up, and then I remember the prayer, the mantra, and then it brings me back into the heart. So that's a tool that I've been using for the past like 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
Well, and I think you for myself, when I was in active addiction, I lost so much of who I really was. Alcohol never added anything to me, but it always kind of dampened down the true self, and kept that part of me kind of suppressed. So that was somewhat scary. Getting sober was dealing with, this is who I really am, and what parts of that do I like and what parts of that do I want to change. But finding out for the first time with some things, what do I really enjoy doing? What do I really like doing? What type of people do I really enjoy being around? Because a lot of the people that I spent time with when I was drinking were friends that's what we did. And I got to a point even in my drinking career where I felt like, this is every day on repeat, and this is boring, but this is what I do. This is what I've become. This is what my life has become. And so that kind of leads me into our next topic is, have you found any surprising perks or benefits of being sober during the summer months? And I guess that's just for any time as well. And for me, it was really finding things that I do enjoy doing, in fitness and working out was one of those things for me. Getting out in nature is another one too, that love kayaking and being on the water and hiking and going to the beach and all of those types of things that I just didn't really make the time for when I was in active addiction. And so that for me was definitely a benefit, was just getting to the root of who I truly am and what do I really enjoy. And then you attract a different crowd of people when you're living from that more authentic place. At least I found that to be true for myself. So
Yeah, usually it happens naturally.
Absolutely.
And yeah, for me, when I was in addiction, it was like a half-lived life, because I wasn't living near my full potential. And it's hard for me when I see that with some of the people I grew up with who have like really high potentials, but can't quite, and I understand it's okay, but I just can see that, but I wasn't either. And I used to live at one point about 15 minutes from the beach, and every day we would say we were going to go to the beach, and then stay up all night getting drunk and high. And then the next morning would come and it would just be the blinds closed and sitting there, and we never made it to the beach.
Right.
Like it was terrible. But yeah, I mean, there's all these things that people want to do, right? Like most people do probably love nature. There's not a lot of people that would say they don't.
Right.
And,
I hate that.
But yeah, it's hard. It just kind of, what it used to make me okay with was doing nothing. And like you said about the kind of like the hellish part of it too, is once you start kind of knowing you're in that cycle, but still staying in it, because usually there's a period of time before someone gets clean and sober where you're starting to realize, at least for me, that things weren't that good. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what to do about it. I had too big of an ego to ask for help. I just didn't know, and then the universe kind of did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and brought me to this point where I was facing 5 felony charges for this like violent crime and robbery stuff. Yeah. And then my house was full of drugs when they came to arrest me, and it was a pretty big thing. But every littler thing that happened before that was still pretty big, I wouldn't listen to it,
No, right?
So it took that to happen, or I just wasn't going to do anything,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The only other thing I wanted to say real quick before we go on to Lucas is how you mentioned AA meetings. And it's just one thing I want to put out there. I went to AA and NA meetings, hundreds of them in the beginning. And for the first about 4 years of my recovery, I pretty much went every day. I went to a lot, and I still go on occasion, much less than I used to, but I was only 20 years old when I got clean and sober, so I pretty much grew up in those programs, like learning from people, learning life, learning how to communicate. I mean, learning how to feel my emotions and all of these things. So, everyone's path is different, but for me, I learned a lot in there. And even the things I learned with meditation and spirituality from this man that was in his 80s and he was dying of cancer, and he was a really spiritual guy, and he'd meet me an hour before these meetings for a long time and teach me these things, and just a lot of beautiful things there. And that's just because we were talking about what you can do with your time and in the summer, and whether it's that or a different group, it's good to be around other people that are, on a similar path that could support you.
Absolutely. And I think going to that amount of meetings, and I know they recommend when you first get sober doing 30 meetings in 30 days, and I think some of the benefit of that is if you're going to a variety of different meetings in different locations, and then hopefully meeting different people, like you said, there's different paths and there's different approaches, and just hearing some of those different perspectives and understanding it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter, like this is the one way to do it, but you have to figure it out for yourself and find what works for you. And then hopefully along the way you do meet people like the gentleman that you were talking about, that are willing to pour into you. Cause I know that's just a hallmark of those of us that are in recovery, and a big part of staying sober, staying clean is giving it away, right? Sharing your story. And I always say that, it's worth what I went through and the struggle and the suffering if I can meet somebody in that same place and say, hey, this is what worked for me, and you're not alone. You don't have to walk this path alone. Because there were those people in place for me that were there when I finally got to the point where I could reach out for help. And so that's a great perspective to share, that, yeah, if you go to a meeting and it's not for you, keep going, try a different one, reach out, ask other people, ask around and find different, there's different types of meetings. I know there's AA, there's Celebrate Recovery, there's a variety of different options. So if the first one you go to isn't your bag, try again.
Definitely, there's a variety of all kinds out there. Like everyone is different. Every meeting is different. So, between 12-step, open meeting, closed meetings, like they're all different. So find one that you definitely can fit in. Because I don't go to all of them in my area.
Right.
But I got that one I go to on Sunday. That's my spot.
Yes.
So I totally get it.
Absolutely.
Could you repeat the
sure. Just what are some of the surprising perks or benefits that you found in being sober? Yeah.
I mean, we could be here all night if I started going off the list. I mean, for one, like you can again the action figures that used to be bottles that I used to throw away. A thing that I hear a lot in the rooms of AA, like, man, my wallet, it just got so big. I didn't know what to do. Like you always think like, yeah, I'm budgeting everything. Yeah, I'm paying my bills. But when you finally stop, you realize how much money you just are like throwing away. Cause it's not just what you're getting, it's like, okay, now there's all the times I go to the gas station, then I go out to eat and like, okay, whatever, $5 here, $10 there, $20 here, whatever, you don't care because you're in that moment. So being like something that I'm happy about is being able to not get caught up in those moments, but being able to be caught up in the moments of life. Like I'm able to enjoy moments. I'm able to enjoy being happy, able to enjoy being sad. Like something that I am it might sound crazy, but I'm grateful for is that I was able to grieve when my cousin passed away from prostate cancer. Like he passed away recently, and I was able to grieve. I didn't have to be at the bottom of a bottle. I didn't have to have a drink at the services. Like I was able to grieve and in a healthy manner.
Right.
He passed, and then a month went by, and then we had his services. And in that month, I was able to, take it in. And then when the service was, I was able to let it out. And like, it felt good. It didn't feel overwhelming. I wasn't just in constant sorrow because I was stuck in a loop in my head. And, I'm able to feel my emotions, that sadness. I'm able to feel the happiness. Yeah. Like, I I got a little one coming, another baby coming along the way in a couple of months or a couple of weeks here.
Wow.
So, I'm able to be happy for that, I'm able to enjoy that happiness. It's totally different, because you're like, yeah, I'm happy, whatever, I don't give a shit, I don't give a fuck. Like, you're it's totally different being like, nah, I'm happy. I don't give a fuck because I'm happy.
Right.
Like, all right, even being sad or even being angry, like, I'm able to be angry now and move through that emotion instead of just lash out.
Right.
I'm able to have more control of myself. Like, if anything, having more self-control, that's been a huge benefit. Like, summertime, we'd be wilding out over the summertime.
For
I couldn't
sure.
how many times I took a car over some train tracks. What up, Kyle? Like, how many times I drove my truck into a field and did donuts and then got caught up in the field and broke an axle. Like, what up, Chris? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how many times did I just was so reckless? I lived in that moment. Yeah, it was all cool. It was all dandy. But also, how many times did I almost put my life in jeopardy? Like, even if it was the crazy stuff like that, or how many times did I put somebody else's life in jeopardy driving around like that? How many times did I wake up from a blackout? Like, not only how did I get home, but did I do anything stupid last night?
Let me go check my car, make sure everything looks up.
Man, I used to have a reoccurring dream for years that I was in this dream and I would roll a car, I would wreck a car, and then I'd wake up in the morning and look out look out the window like, did I wreck the truck? Did I wreck the truck? I had that reoccurring dream, and then I had the accident. You know what I mean?
That's wild.
And then I had the accident. I don't have that dream no more.
That's wild.
And I don't have that. So there's one thing that I'm gonna take to the summer with me is I don't have that damn reoccurring dream anymore. Is having an accident.
Absolutely.
So like what can I take with me, man? I could take everything with me. Like this coming this summer. There's so much I can take in. Even the time that I spend with my kids is differently. Because, before I'd just be like, then go play a video game or whatever,
right.
You're not there.
It's that part. And I feel like I hear that resonating from both of you, from what you're saying, is that you're able to be present. And I know that for myself too. I think that I wouldn't change what I went through because it brought me to where I am. But when I look back, the parts that are hard for me are those parts that are missing, the blackout drinking, or the parts where I know I wasn't fully present for my kids in their lives and things that I, experiences and circumstances and celebrations and things that I wasn't fully present for because I was numbing out with booze.
Well, I always say too, like I always let people know with my story, I have two older ones, they're 16 and 14, and then I have two younger ones, 8 and 4, and you can tell the different father that they had growing up. You can tell. There's no denying. So like as much as people don't like to believe it, like I live with that every day. Like that's something I have to live with is I didn't give them the best father I could have. But I'm trying that for the younger ones, and I'm trying my best to make it up to the older ones, but it's hard right now. They're teenagers. They're going through what they're going through. They're still figuring themselves out. So it's hard for them to understand my dynamic when they don't even understand their dynamic fully yet.
Absolutely.
So like just being able to see that, that little bit of awareness, you see the dynamic and that's who I was versus who I am now. And that's something that plays off in my life regularly. So
for sure.
So I know what I get to take with me this summer.
For sure.
Yeah, that's good. The memory, blackouts is a big, I used to mix hard liquor and Xanax bars, like tons of them. So I was always and I was really young, but I started doing them like that when I was like 13 and a half, 14 years old till I was 20. So most of my high school and everything, I just don't remember at all.
Those are formative years when your brain is developing. And there's
all
a
the
lot
years
of important things going on. So that's scary.
Yeah, all the years my brain was developing, I was just like totally obliterated all through it, which is a terrible thing, and that's why when I got clean, when I was saying I grew up in like the 12-step programs, I literally had to learn. I mean, I remember I had friends of mine that were like, once I got sober, they were like, see, I told that other guy you weren't actually mentally handicapped. You just this and that. Because that was how, bad it, like I had such a hard, and I had done so much, these ecstasy and these pills, I couldn't even communicate what I was thinking in words to people. And then I couldn't manage my emotions at all. So that's why I was always screaming at people, getting in trouble at school, with the teachers, bullying kids, was being very mean to my parents, all of these things.
Sure.
But I went from being, like you said, what are the benefits of it? And I went from being pretty much the most scumbag person in my family, actually by far, to being the most, one of the most accountable and reliable and respected people. And even to the point where family and friends will make jokes about how reliable I am to show up for something. But it's like, it was totally the opposite. But those are the things that come, and people can start to count on you, and you can show up for things. And, if we're doing the work, we become a little bit less selfish every day. Where when I'm in active addiction, I'm not thinking of anything except for Alex's ego and feeding that. And the longer we stay sober, and if we're continuing to work on ourselves, we have opportunities to be of service to other people and be there for people. And whether it's friends or family, or we give in different ways. And that is a huge benefit, because I've learned over the years, I find the most joy that way. And that's what they say in 12-step, it gets you out of yourself and your self-obsession. So those are some of the huge benefits too, that are things that I didn't even know really existed when I was in addiction.
You don't even consider that. How can I be of service to other people, and how fulfilling that really is. But it is, and there's just a joy, and I see it in both of you when you talk about your recovery, and you with your kids, and you with your practice. And there is something that just shifts when you do become dependable. And I was talking about it with my kids actually this week. I'm working on I'm a teacher, and so I'm working on a summer gig, and the girl I'm working with, I was talking to her, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna have a key made for you so that you can come in and open up and set up and kind of get things rolling when I'm not around. And I that stood out to me, and I said that to them. I was such an unreliable, unpredictable wild card of a person for so long when I was in addiction that you wouldn't want to give me a key to anything, let alone invite me in to be part of it, anything, because maybe I would show up or maybe I wouldn't. But the fact that I've in recovery done the work that it takes to be somebody that can be counted on and reliable, to the point that, she's going to give me a key and let me come in, and this is her space, and she trusts me to come in and open and get things set up and get things rolling. And those are those gifts of recovery that, there's no way to put into words like what that feels like. And to be able to be counted on, and reliable for the people that we care about, for other people in recovery. Those are definitely some amazing benefits and gifts, as well.
Yes.
How do you handle like some of the common social events where alcohol is a centerpiece? Things like barbecues, baseball games, weddings, festivals, that kind of stuff.
Pay no mind. Oh, that doesn't stop me a bit.
Hey.
That don't stop me a bit. Oh, no. I was just at a concert last week. I was at a show. I was in the pits. What do you think happens in the pits? People got beers. There's beer everywhere on the floor getting thrown.
Spilling on you.
I don't pay me no mind. I don't care. I'm so cool with it. It just doesn't bother me at all. It really doesn't. I found that out. It was still my first year after the accident. I was still using a walker at the time, but I had seen a client, and he wanted me to come over to give him an estimate. And I'm like, bro, I'm still in a walker. He's like, oh, no worries. Come take some measurements, and then when, figure it out when you can, you can. So I went over there, and, he's all, oh, man, I'm so sorry to hear this, and I'm so sorry that. And he was all sloshed up. So naturally, when he went to go give me a hug, he had his beer in his hand, and his beer went blam right all over my back. And that was like my first encounter with alcohol after the accident and everything. And I noticed like it didn't trigger me. You know what I mean? Like it didn't bother me. I laughed about it. And I was like that moment of relief, like it was like a moment of relief, being like,
Sure.
Man, I'm in front of this stuff right now. It's on me. And I don't feel the pull. I don't feel the anxiety. I don't feel like that salivation I used to get, or like that like thinking. I'm like, all right, now when's the next time I can go get it? Like,
Right.
None of it was there. So how can I handle it? I can handle it just fine.
That's amazing.
Like I noticed it depends on who's talking to me about it though. Like my mother, I don't like my mother talking to me about it. Like she tries to tell me, oh, I had this drink and it was so good and I had this Dos Equis. But it's weird because I can talk to my homeboy about it. If my homeboy's like, oh man, I tried this new whiskey the other day, you'd have liked it 10 years ago, you know? And it's like, okay, cool, whatever. I can bullshit with them like that, you know? But like I notice when my mom does it, it's like, I don't like it. You know, it's weird how that still rubs me differently. But for the most part, yeah, I can be around it at Christmas or Thanksgiving if they have it. At parties where they got it, like weddings when they have it. Like I've been all around. It really doesn't bother me. I've ordered. There's a spot by me, Lake Galileo. They were known for having beefs. Their beefs went down the fucking drain, I think, in the past couple of years. Sorry, guys. But you got to walk into the bar to get the beef. And that's what I used to do is walk in the bar. And like my woman used to be upset, like not upset, but she used to be worried. Are you okay? Can you go in there? Is it all right? Like legit. I'm totally 100% cool with just walking in there, being around it. Like if you guys were drinking right now, I can hang out with you. Like I really don't, you know. And then I will notice a tipping, like the turning point. You know, when people get to that, like, oh shit, they got 3 down, 4 down. Then you know it's time to, you know, because that's when the whole scenery and the whole vibe changes. You know, like you can be around casual, but yeah, I also know it's a bad idea to be around the sloppiness because I know that I like What'd you say? What'd you say? Say it again. Say, you know, and that's me sober. So, but having the self-awareness, hey, don't put yourself in that situation.
It's knowing for yourself, this is something that I can handle versus this is where the situation is different. Even like you said with talking to your mom, if you know that that's more of a sensitive kind of dynamic that you don't want to put yourself in.
I had to explain it to her like this. Like my stepdad, he was in the living room, you know, and she was talking about it. I'm like, hey, can you please have some respect? You know, like you were there in the hospital with me. Like I don't want you to talk to me about this stuff. And she tried, I can't believe. I said, hey, Lance, this is my stepdad. I said, hey, Lance, do you want me to talk to you about how I used to smoke weed all the fucking time? You know, you want me to tell you how cool that used to be? Do you like any of that? You want to hear any of that? He's like, no, I don't want to hear none of that shit. And I'm like, see, he doesn't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about that. Like, you know, like, you know, I'm just give me that respect, you know? And it was, I think it was a little bit of her trying to figure that out for a while too.
It is.
But, you know, after giving her some time, it's been cool. But like I said, everywhere I go, y'all want to celebrate. And then like, you know, for the New Year's, I've always liked the sparkling grape juice. So I'll get my little bubblies on right there. But other than that, yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
First, I want to give a shout out to my parents because they were always so supportive of me, and they would come with me to the open AA meetings. And my dad had stopped, like he was a heavy drinker when he was younger, but when he would drink at a funeral or a wedding on a rare occasion, he would still overdo it quite a bit. He would say and he would always have to kind of battle, like he said, like if we were at parties growing up, like I'll leave with the kids so I don't drink too much. But once I got sober, in honor of that, he completely stopped drinking totally.
That's awesome.
And he, without doing a program of his own or anything, but he said shortly after that, he's like, it doesn't bother me anymore. I don't think about it. I feel free from it now. He's like, before I used to have to try not, you know, this kind of thing.
Right.
But now, so that's a beautiful thing. So my parents were always very supportive, and that accountability helped because we were always really open about it. So then all the family knew and all the friends knew.
Sure.
And it was like, this guy changed his life completely. But that gave me a lot of accountability where it was like, okay, I'm like, I guess I'm doing this, you know.
There's no turning back.
Yeah. But anyway, so our question, what was our actual question?
Just how do you handle social events where alcohol is kind of the centerpiece?
Oh, yeah. So I feel similar to Lucas, but I will say alcohol wasn't my favorite drug. If they had Xanax and Percocet bars everywhere, it'd be like probably a different story, you know, it'd be probably kind of tough. But I do believe, I'll start with the ultimate ending, which is what you were talking about, is I do believe, like it says in the big book, that when somebody is free and has had their spiritual awakening and maintains it, that they could walk anywhere and be okay and not have that pull-on addiction. But it takes time to get there. And not only does it take time, but it takes work, and we have to keep working on ourselves because we're not guaranteed that, if I stop
Yes.
working on myself now, I don't know what I would feel like in a month or 6 months or a year. And that could even come back, like that craving and desire.
Part of that just for today thing.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Just for today. And then when people are really struggling, though, if someone's new to recovery and they're only trying to be sober for their first event or these type of things, you have to ask yourself first some tough questions, because sometimes if you really want to change your life, maybe for a while you have to not go to certain things and certain places, Sometimes it's like that's what it takes, it depends on each individual, but if we're willing to do whatever it takes and we know our mind is still filled up with those cravings and desires and temptations, maybe we have to not put ourselves around it for a while.
Smart.
Yeah. Yeah. And they always say, which is so true, like, be able to leave a situation if you have to, like you said, and have somebody that you can hopefully talk to that's supporting you. And, these are valuable things too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do a lot of reading as well. I know you said that was something that's been beneficial for you. And one of the authors that I really like is Brene Brown, and she calls those circumstances the FFTs, the fucking first time. So it's the FFT that I have to go to a baseball game and sit around people that are ordering beers. And that was, something that I used to do and something that I used to enjoy. So what does that look like if I'm in that circumstance now as a sober person or at a concert? It always comes back to the wallet for me. When I look at, it's $15 for a beer plus tip or whatever that is, or at a concert if I would have normally spent.
One.
No, 100%.
You're
No,
not getting
absolutely.
one.
But now I go to a concert and I'm like, I can absolutely afford to get a shirt because I'm not spending
You wouldn't have a problem
$300
buying 5 beers off the jump, but a $45 shirt, you're like, ugh.
That kind of stings. Oh, absolutely. But sometimes it is getting through that first time of, okay, I am so used to numbing every kind of emotion and entering into every experience. You were saying whether you were celebrating or whether you were feeling sad or whether you were angry, but any kind of an experience I'm going into, and I'm kind of lubricating that with alcohol. If that's how I've gone through life for a majority of my adult years, it's going to be different and it's going to feel strange going into it. But kind of when you get over that, for me, when you get over that hurdle of, okay, well, I did this for the first time and it not only didn't go as bad as I expected, I actually kind of enjoyed myself. That kind of just gives you some motivation to continue to, put yourself out there and try. But I also agree with what you were saying, and it's absolutely true. You kind of have to have that self-awareness and know yourself enough to know, okay, well, this is a circumstance, or maybe this is a place that's not the wisest choice for me, especially early on in sobriety. And I have gotten to a point, I feel like, where I can be in any situation. I can go to any, kind of any event or be part of any environment, and there might be booze present, and I'm usually pretty okay with it. But then there are certain times or circumstances. I had this just a couple months ago. Someone invited me out to watch a March Madness game, and I really thought going in, like, oh, it's cool. I have no problem going to something like that. And I was there for about 15 minutes and something just felt sticky, and I had to walk away. And I'm almost 4.5 years sober, but it's knowing yourself enough to know, all right, it's gone south. Everybody's 3 sheets to the wind now. It's time for me to go, because this is going to go sideways some kind of way, even if it doesn't end with me taking a drink. But am I going to fall back into those old patterns of behavior?
Habits,
Absolutely.
And that's something that actually brought me back to AA, like in the beginning, because I went about 2 years without going to AA,
Sure.
And I noticed that I started having a lot of those really bad, like, nasty thoughts. And it wasn't even thoughts about drinking. It was just bad, nasty thoughts. Like, oh, wow, I used to think like that before. So I had to be, ahead of the game. And that's why I started going to AA again, like where I was most comfortable at. Because I had been there, to meetings before. And I was like, this is the one I was most comfortable at. Let me go there, check it out. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, call it mental fortitude. I was going there to get mental fortitude.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something, because one of my first interactions, I do remember, now that we've been talking about it, one of my first times being around, like, alcohol as sober, I did have a little bit of that anxiety, like, oh man, like, oh shit, like it's out.
Right?
But, you know, I eliminated myself from the situation. I understood what I was going through and how to process it. And then, of course, that inevitably I was met up in a situation like that again. But slowly but surely, I was able to handle it better and better. And like I said, now I get to a place where I'm at a concert. I don't give a damn.
Right.
You know, I can go to the baseball game with my mom and she can have her drinks over there and they can have their drinks over there and they can yell, beer, hot dog, water. You know, and it's not... You know, I can smell it in the pisser because somebody spilled it everywhere and it doesn't get to me. Like,
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, how you mentioned too, which sometimes they call in the program dry drunk, but when, you know, if somebody's not drinking, but the mind is racing and acting out in different ways. And it's really a great point because, you know, some people even say alcohol isn't the problem or the drug. It's the solution. It was our solution basically,
Right.
or we thought it was our
Right.
solution, which I totally agree with because the problem comes first from here, right? And essentially the in the mind, and essentially the alcohol or the drug is kind of what's getting us out of ourselves for a little bit. That's what it's
Right.
really doing.
Yeah.
It's changing
Sure.
the way you feel. Because I didn't know how else to change the way I feel or to feel okay with myself or to feel emotions and these things. So that's why when we're talking about recovery or spiritual work or any of these things, whatever term you want to give for it, self-introspection, that's why it's so important because essentially what we're actually making the change to is deeper parts of ourselves, not just, you know, our mind, our hearts, our spirit, not only putting the substance down. That's like almost like the most outer manifestation. It's really hard. And at first you think it's the main
You
point.
sure do.
You think,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But then it becomes more because we can be suffering in our mind with habits and behaviors and patterns, even if we're not drinking or using drugs. And then if we do have that history of addiction, then the chances get higher when we're feeling and thinking that way that you might go back to what you did.
Absolutely. Before, You're absolutely correct in saying that. Are there strategies or boundaries that you've put in place, or what strategies and boundaries, I guess, have you put in place that help you maintain your sobriety during the summertime or any time?
Well, I think it's important to put a boundary on yourself. You know, like, don't feel ashamed to say that you're sober. Don't be ashamed to turn down a drink. Like, I don't understand it, but I know that there's been a lot of people that I've come across that have been like, well, what do I do when somebody offers me? You say no. Like, I that's a part of it that I never understood. But also, like everybody's journey is different, you know, like the way that my spiritual awakening happened and the way that I process things. You know, I'm like, I was tormented by that fucking demon of alcoholism for so long, and I'm so happy to be free of it. Anytime somebody offers me a drink, nah, bro, I'm such and such time sober. I'm 4.5 years sober. You know, like even when I was 1 year sober, like, nah, man, I don't drink. You don't drink anything? Nah, I don't drink anything. You know, like I don't have a problem admitting that.
Right.
And that's something that I think is important is, you know, just being able to say, hey, I don't do that. Hold
Right.
yourself accountable. Like you're putting that boundary on yourself. You know, if you want everybody to respect your boundaries, then you have to speak your boundaries. You have to communicate them. And one of my boundaries is, you know, hey, I don't drink, so don't offer it to me. And even if somebody offers it to me, like they probably don't know that I don't drink. So you got to be respectful. Say, hey, just so you know, that's not my bag, baby.
Yes.
Like, so that's just my thing. It's you gotta have a boundary for yourself, because once you cross that boundary in your own mind, you go back to that thinking. It's almost like that's the whole reserve idea. When you got reserves in your head, you know, you already crossed your own boundary because you didn't set one. You know, so once you got the boundary set for yourself, I don't think there's anything you can't say to anyone. You know, once you set it for yourself,
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, just having the courage. and it's really just the fear in your own mind, kind of, or maybe what other people think, because I mean, I've never had a bad response really from anyone by saying that I was clean and sober, even drug dealers and stuff. Like, even I was just in Michigan working on this property I have painting, and this guy came up to me and he's like, I got the best dope around, man. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. And then he's like, really? You sure? Like, you don't want any? I'm like, nah, man, I used to do a lot of that and I was really fucked up when I was younger, and now I don't anymore, you know? And then he's like, well, God bless you, man. He's like, have a good day. You know, so even him is like happy.
I mean, I see some people might feel judgment, but I can honestly say, like you, I've had so many more positive experiences than I could even think of. Like, I don't think I've had one person look at me and be like, oh, you're sober? Fuck you. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
No, by and large, I do think it's and especially I have teenage and young adult boys, and I'm seeing the trend with young people even to kind of stay away from drugs and alcohol versus what I experienced when I was their age, which is fantastic. Yeah. The only time I guess I've ever really had any kind of pushback was being newly sober and then hanging out with a couple. I have a couple of friends that I had at the time that when they found out I had gotten sober, the response was, well, you don't drink anything at all anymore. Well, if you had a problem, then I definitely have a problem. And it's those people that maybe are questioning their own relationship with it. And I will never, come out and say, yeah, for you definitely need to get sober. This is because everybody kind of has to walk their own path, and you can only come to that conclusion on your own. But I think sometimes when folks are struggling with their own relationship with drugs or alcohol, that can kind of be where some of that judgment comes out. But for sure, having those boundaries in place for yourself without reserve in your own mind. And for me personally, I know I can't have it in my house. We don't keep it in the house because that's a terrible idea for me. If I know that it's there, I can say, oh, I'm not going to have it. It's just there for if somebody else. No, it's a bad idea for me to keep it in the house, so I don't.
That's how I'm with cookies. Chocolate
Amen
chip cookies.
to that. One is never enough.
Oh, God, man.
Awesome. Well, I think on that note, we can kind of wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for sharing. If anybody has additional thoughts, comments.
That's all we got already? Man, we're sailing on through. Huh?
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having us on or for listening to us.
Yeah, for checking us out, for sure. Thanks for hollering.
Appreciate you guys so much for being willing to come out and just share part of your story, and hopefully we can kind of jump in and do it again. And thank you to you all for hanging with us tonight. This has been the Panle After Dark podcast. And I just want to encourage you, if you're considering sobriety, it does not have to be the end to the party. It can be the beginning of something incredibly, incredibly beautiful. So stay sober, stay sexy until next time. And we'll catch y'all on the next episode.
Can I leave a quick note?
Yeah.
When you get sober, you're not going to lose yourself. Don't be scared. You're just going to find the better version of yourself. I thought I was going to not be who I was, and that was the biggest, scariest part of being sober. Then I realized that I was the best version of who I thought I was going to lose. So,
yes.
Amen to that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.